Well, as I was saying, as an introduction, that I'm just repeating, that I am so, so grateful to you, the Optimal Living students, and Pan, Coral, Robert, that is sharing with us. If she is, that it's such a privilege, because every time one is called to do something, it becomes an involvement that is highly meaningful. And what is so highly meaningful to me tonight, and what I want to share with you, is that in considering what I wanted to talk to the Optimal Living students about at the beginning of a new year was something that's very central to my life at the moment. And the title that I thought about is the one you were given, The Defiant Power of the Human Spirit, which is essentially what? Overcoming evil with good. Now, in contemplating what I wanted to share with you, 5 minutes before 6, I'd made a few notes. A new realization dawned on me in understanding what I'd written down in a totally new way. And wow, so we are in for something very exciting tonight. And this is it. This is actually true, meaningful living, that every single moment has got unique meaning. And it's always uplifting, exciting in whatever dire circumstances you are. When you find meaning, you transcend those circumstances and you find a way to move forward with your life. Now, I want to thank you for that title, because this is the title I decided to give my new book that I'm writing at the moment. Thank you for that. Right. Now, let's look at the defiant power of the human spirit. And we look at it more succinctly than in the experiences of Viktor Frankl himself. Where did he experience the defiant power of the human spirit more powerfully than before or after in his life? It was in the Nazi concentration and death camps, in the most gruesome situations of suffering that we can possibly imagine, okay? But you know, and this is the new revelation, because I looked at the different episodes of Frankl's experiences in the camp with his book, Man's Search for Meaning, which is your prescribed book. And I noted things down. And then when I looked at it, I was astounded, like I said, just 5 minutes before 6, to see it, a pattern there that actually tells us something tremendously important. And here it is. And it's the essential essence of the defiant power of the human spirit. And what is that? What Frankl said, that our spirits, essentially who we are as human beings, each in our unique personhood, we have an unscathed spirit, pure, without any doubts or anxieties or distortions or angers, in its purity of meaning. And it says to us, and this is what we have to discover through all those doubts and uncertainties and sufferings and struggles that we have in life. This is what we have to discover. My God, I am actually unconditionally worthy in the sight of the one who gave me life. My life, who I am altogether beautiful. My word, now, you know, this is what we struggle with because we have such doubts about ourselves. And we question ourselves in terms of our worthiness. And why? Because we have such painful experiences in life that seems to want to get us down and bring wrong messages to us. Like I have contended that psychopathology is a lie. In other words, pathology is a lie. And we begin to believe wrong things about ourselves and about life. And we begin to doubt our worthiness, and we begin to doubt whether life has any meaning at all. And that's what we have to overcome. By what? By the purity of our spirit. And you know, all right, let me now trace what the events in Frankel's life during his captivity, his incarceration. And what I want to illustrate, and that what dawned on me is, what happened? What happened when he was faced with what was absolutely senseless? It was so inhumane. It was so against anything and everything that gives life meaning. What did he discover? Now, I'm going to take you through those few instances, that what actually happened, and I've never seen it so clearly, when Frankl said that suffering makes us aware, okay, he said, of what ought not to be, but I shift the focus that suffering makes us aware of what ought to be. What ought to be. Who we really are. What we really want. What life is really about. That is what happens. And that is the provocation of evil against us, of everything that assails our sense of dignity and worth, that we experience something radically different from what those influences are trying to tell us in a negative way about ourselves. Now, I found the first instance where he was first just observing, okay, and seeing what was happening around him and experiencing it. And he said what was so amazing is that everyone was more concerned with their higher thoughts. You know, let me just give you an instance. He said that sexual perversity was virtually absent from among them. They didn't even think about sex. It was gone. It was what they, and he said that what was so amazing is that, and here, listen to this first observation. And he looked at it, he saw it, and he began to experience it in himself, okay? The religious interest of the prisoners, as far and as soon as it developed, was the most sincere imaginable. The depth and vigor of religious belief often surprised and moved a new arrival. Most impressive in this connection were improvised prayers or services in the corner of a hut or in the darkness of a locked cattle truck, in which we were brought back from a distant worksite, tired and hungry and frozen and ragged clothing, but they gathered to pray. My God, isn't that enough? Listen, then another thing, that the unconscious God that he speaks about, that we are essentially deeply within ourselves related to the divine. That conception of God is unconscious, but boy, it's very, very operative. For example, I'm just reading Pan's book, and the evidence of what she was experiencing. And Pan, you will see this in Frankel's work right now that I'm sharing with you. That nothing could stop you from seeing beauty, from experiencing beauty, from looking for it, your creativity that was developed despite the hardships you went through. And the second thing that happened to him was that he wanted to recapture his past. Now, that's tremendously important. He found himself, he said, eventually I began to reconstruct the manuscript which I had lost in the disinfection chamber of Auschwitz. And I scribbled the keywords in shorthand on tiny scraps of paper. He had a work that was finished, and he brought that manuscript in the inside of his coat, and it was taken from him. And he thought, well, now, he's already lost an unborn child. And I won't go into that story now, but this was his spiritual child. This was his mission. This is what gave his life meaning. And it was taken from him. He said, now I'm faced with the loss of not only a physical child, but also a spiritual child. And what was awakened in him under these circumstances that actually was set to dehumanize the human being and to break down the human spirit to the level where you become like an animal, okay? That was the intent of the Nazi system, to dehumanize and then to treat the prisoners as if they were numbers to be eradicated from the list of the unwanted. That really what it, and what did it do? He wanted to recapture that, hold on to that. And, it's a redeeming of the past, which is a tremendous important feature of logotherapy and when you are involved with a client, to pick out the meaning moments of their past and to lift that up above the suffering that they have gone through and to show them, like Pan said in her book, life has never deserted me. It was always there. And to become aware of that you're not alone. And that the redemption of that past, was followed by the truth of love. They weren't married very long. His wife, Tilly, was separated from him at Auschwitz, where they did the selection, and sent to the women's side. And he never saw her again. And after the war, he heard that she had died in Bergen-Belsen, okay? But what did he remember here? Now listen, it's so important. Meaning is indestructible. When Frankl said, if you have deposited meaning in your past, nothing and no one can take it from you. It's eternalized. The moment is eternalized. It's become part of your eternal being. Spirit cannot die, okay? It cannot die. It transcends death, okay? And this is exactly what he experienced. And it was one of the most riveting experiences he had. He said, a thought transfixed me. For the first time in my life, I saw the truth as if it was set into song, by so many poets and proclaimed as the final wisdom by so many thinkers, the truth that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. And then he understood, and it became a motto, He said, the salvation of man is in and through love. And then he recalled so vividly, after an experience of crying out to heaven as to the meaning of his suffering, and he heard a yes, there is meaning, and it cannot be destroyed. That's when he had the experience of a dove sitting on the earth, a mound of earth, looking at him steadily, and he knew it was the presence of his wife. My word, and it was so real to him that, and he recalled their love, that he said, he was so transfixed with her presence and for the reality of that love, that, as he said, set me like a seal upon thy heart. Love is as strong as death. He was quoting King Solomon. So that love is as strong as death. He said it didn't even matter to him whether his wife was alive or dead, because their love went on. And after the Holocaust, Ellie, his wife, on a visit to her, she showed me that Frankel slept on a single bed under the portrait of his first wife, Tilly. That love was indestructible. It didn't mean that he didn't love Ellie, but that love was present with him as an empowering influence throughout his life. And then, the consoling beauty of nature was another thing that he observed. And it's like, life is beautiful. The world is beautiful. If you look at it, it's magnificent. And it's there. That was his experience when he was released from the camps, and he sank on his knees and he thanked God for releasing him out of his narrow prison into the freedom of space. And what did he experience? The beauty of the blue sky and the larks singing, and it's as and the thought that transfixed him. Life is still there. The world is beautiful. It exists even beyond the Nazi concentration camps. And this is what he noticed in the camps, that that whenever there was a beautiful sunset, or any kind of terrific experience that they could have as they were, carted in trains from the work site, the fields of beautiful green and trees, that, at one instance, one of the inmates exclaimed what is so true. He said, how beautiful the world could be. In other words, evil spoils it. Evil neglects it. Evil uses it for its own gain. And there is no reverence for nature. But, if your spirit is attuned to meaning, that, like Frankel said, how can you walk past a beautiful sunset? Yesterday, there were such beautiful clouds in the sky. I just gasped at it. And I felt so awed by this, the white clouds, staples on top of each other, and the dark blue sky behind it. It was thunderous the day. Don't you glory at nature? And doesn't it? And Pan speaks about it, how nature was healing to her. She had one of her peak moments here in Israel on top of a desert mountain, overlooking the desert mountains and the Dead Sea. And she had an experience which changed her life. A feeling that she'd reached, and this is what happened afterwards, such self-transcendent thoughts way above everything that's ugly and nasty and hostile and evil. Such a flooding of life, a beautiful life surging through her, in such oneness with the beauty and the glory of nature. And that's what he observed so keenly. And then, you know, he noticed how self-transcendent they were. You know, that for example, humor became a very strong experiences in the camp, where they could laugh at. And you know, the greatest spiritual triumph is recorded in Psalm 2, where it says about how the nations are conniving and, you know, to destroy Israel. And it says how God sits in the heavens and laughs. They won't succeed. He said, I have set my king on my holy mount, Zion. You know, God's glorious, meaningful purposes, not only for us in our individual lives, but throughout the human story, throughout the entire human history, is something awesomely wonderful, right? And then, in one of the most wonderful experiences he had, and you know, it's like he also described the gratitude that they felt for the smallest of mercies, right? They became so keenly aware of the beauty and the worth and the value of life itself in its glorious, absolute, beautiful context. Life is beautiful. And anybody that tries to spoil it is actually doing a sacrilege, okay? Anyway, so what was it that, you know, that all of these experiences led to? They begin to experience their own human dignity, their own self-worth. It began to dawn on them. And this was one of the strongest experiences of Frankl, and he wrote about it. He said, under the influence of a world which no longer recognized the value of human life and human dignity, which had robbed man of his will, and had made him an object to be exterminated, having planned, however, to make full use of him first to the last ounce of his physical resources. Under this influence, the personal ego, if you do not find meaning, will suffer a loss of values. If a man in the concentration camp did not struggle against this in a last effort to save his self-respect, he lost the feeling of being an individual, a being with a mind, with inner freedom and personal value. And this is that then he began to understand the challenge of the meaning of suffering, to retain your dignity no matter what. And to be able to begin to say, look how the divine power of the human spirit first showing itself as there, that you are a spiritual being. In other words, your whole existence is flooded with meaning and has meaning. And that's the meaning you've got to discover. And then when you do and you understand your own worth, that your dignity is the one thing that you hold on to. And like he said, how they discovered that it's not what you know, what life can give to me, but what life is expecting from each one of us to transcend. And then not only to transcend, but to stand against, and in our growth of goodness and spirituality, in terms of the real grasp of the meaning of life, that we can stand against what is wrong. Like the final revelation that he ends with. But the point is, that became very important to them. And like he said, how much suffering there is to get through. And he said, every day offered you so many opportunities to make the right choices, not to give in to despair, not to become the victim, and not to let evil triumph over you, but that you begin to learn how to triumph over evil. That's the magnificent thing, that they saw then their suffering as a task to retain their human decency and dignity no matter what. Well, and you know, that then he said that actually being so challenged by suffering, you can reach the highest peaks of spiritual stature. Like, you know, like he said, echo homo, the echo homo level. Behold the man. Wow, who can deny the truth that he stands for? Nobody can touch his dignity. He's an awesome figure that evil fears. Evil fears such human dignity because it absolutely nullifies and in the end destroys it utterly. Because evil is nothing but a lie. So if you are so steeped in the truth and you live it and you stand for it, what can evil do? Lies are shown up for what it is. It becomes evident how ugly, how meaningless, how inhumane it is. And that is actually, you know, the whole battle of the human story is a battle for the minds of men. And let me remind you of the creation story where it says sin stands at the door. It's not in you. It stands at the door, and you can allow it not to, you can allow it in, or you can shut the door in its face. The choice is yours. But you are given the ability and the power to overcome that evil and that wrongdoing by doing the right thing, making the right choices. And wow, and what was the final achievement? After all of this, first of all, just experiencing that life was there. And that's what we really want. That's its beauty. It's not gone. And then becoming aware of your own dignity and self-respect, and then taking it on as a task not to lose it. And then, you know, understanding that you have to go through suffering triumphantly and turn adversity into a spiritual triumph, that is your calling. It's each one of us. It's a calling for every one of us. That what do you reach? What is you grow in human stature, okay. You become more and more of a role model. People respect you more and more. People love you more and more. People need you more and more. Oh, wow. But the final thing is what? A breakthrough into the dimension, or the supra dimension, the transcendent level of the divine. A breakthrough. And Frankel, you know, this is the wonderful thing that a life accompany us from birth throughout our lives. It never gives up on us. Does it give up on us if we don't find that final faith? No. But if we do, like Frankel said, those who have not found this faith, is they just stopped short of it. But the final thing is to break through into that ultimate level that he said that that kind of faith fills all of life with meaning. It removes doubt. It doesn't remove vulnerability. It doesn't remove the search. And it's not as if life stops giving you knocks. In fact, you know, they try in many ways, you are put under even a greater trial. Because, you know, like here in Israel, we are so hated. We're so hated. And the anti-Semitism in the world has exploded, right? And that's very hard. And the world is exercising a pressure upon us like you have no idea. To stand through all of this and not to give up until we've actually destroyed the enemy against us. Wow. You know, because in the end, it's also, there is such a thing as holy war. And it's not jihad. This is a holy war when you protect your own. When you stand up against the evil, what was inflicted on innocent youngsters, on families, you stand up against it and you pursue that enemy until he is no more. And spiritually, this is where we actually reach the highest level. And such a wonderful, wonderful experience Frankel had in that regard was when he was, you know, he was, of course, helping wherever he could. And then there was the experience of coming across a woman who was dying of typhoid. And she said to him, and you know the story, it's such a wonderful story. As she was lying on her bunker and looking through the barrack window, she could just see a branch of a tree, and it had some blossoms on it. And she said to Frankel, I often speak to this tree. And he thought, oh my word, she's hallucinating. You know, he's a psychiatrist. And and to test that, he asked her, and does the tree ever speak to you? And she said, oh, yes. And Frankel said, well, what does it say to you? And she said, it says, I am here. I am here. I'm life, eternal life. My word. That's the final breakthrough of faith. And you know what? It doesn't matter how you express that faith. Are so strong with Frankel, we are never preachers in the terms of trying to persuade people to believe the way we do. We try and help them in their faith walk, and it's an individual and a unique walk. And like Frankel said, to God you can only pray. You can't drag him down to a human level and make some kind of religion out of him. He's above all religions, okay? That's why anybody in any religion can find him. That's the wonderful thing about it. Like Frankel said, meaning is available to whosoever, whoever you are, and whatever you believe. But it's a breakthrough in understanding, nonetheless. You become a decent moral values, and with a steadfastness and a feeling of purpose and destiny in your life. And that was the final thing that happened to Frankel. When he was objecting to his own thoughts that so easily get dragged down. Okay, like I said, we're not angels. We are mortal and we suffer. And, you know, like he said, he was thinking about, oh, God, will I get a piece of wire to tie up the shoes he was given that was too big for him and it was scathing his feet and it was very painful? Or will there be a bit of turnip in the soup tonight, something more solid to eat? Or will there be a less vicious workman the next day? And he said he became disgusted that his thoughts were being pulled down here. So he defiantly lifted his spirit. And what did he see? He saw himself, the first time that I saw Frankel, this is exactly what I saw. He was standing on a well-lit platform of a beautiful, well-lit auditorium with people sitting in comfortable upholstered seats, listening to him giving an exposition of life in the concentration camps and the meaning of suffering and the defiant power of the human spirit. That's how I met Frankel when he invited me to come to his first logotherapy clinic in America, okay? And I sat in that upholstered chair and I saw what he saw in the camps, because that's what he saw. That's what he saw. And that would become his mission afterwards. Isn't that magnificent? When the task quality of life, because we all know life is a task. You can't just leave it. You can't neglect it. And you certainly mustn't abuse it. Like Frankl said, you must use the passing time and use it well. And that's the meaning of death, that it shows you've got an opportunity, a once given lifetime opportunity to actually come to a point where you transcend death itself. Okay? So what a wonderful moment when the task quality of life changes and it becomes a mission. And truly, this is what we seek to do in logotherapy, man's quest for his own destiny, right? The life-changing impact of logotherapy. And my last book is about the more ultimate aspects of finding meaning in life, which is really the story of the Jewish people as such an example of survival despite what? Because after all, you know, Viktor Frankl was a Jew. All right, and this is what he then finally said to us, and this is what I say to you in his name, in the name of logotherapy. What man is, listen carefully, what man is, he is not yet, right? We're on a path of getting there, but he ought to be. Know keenly what you ought to do. Become very morally discerning and mature in doing the right thing. And when you do the wrong thing, go and set it right. Immediately, don't wait. If you said something horrible to somebody or you lost your temper, go and put it right immediately. Don't let it simmer, and then don't, you know, and then you deny it, and then what do? You blunt your own conscience. Always respond in the right way, also when you've done a wrong, to go and put it right. And he said, but man he is not yet, but ought to be and should become. All right, thank you. Have you got, I want to thank you. I never saw it like this, okay? I hope it's a new revelation to you too, to realize that life is right there. And you become aware that my word, it wants me. I'm needed. I'm part of it. Your interaction with life becomes so wonderful and so awesomely beautiful. All right. Any remarks or questions?
Teria, just a remark from me. I've always been fascinated by the idea of finding the one right path, the one right answer in a situation. And what I found is that it is a difficult thing to do, but that practice actually makes it clearer. I found for myself, it doesn't just come immediately. You have to really become consciously practicing to recognize what it is that life is asking you to do. And a lot of people, the reason why I'm saying this is that a lot of people have turned around to me and said, yeah, there's so many options and I don't know which option to take, and it's so confusing and there's so much noise out there. For me, it's about practicing to find that right answer.
Absolutely. And I want to just illustrate that. That I once had this riveting experience, as if there was a conversation happening in my mind. I looked at Arthur Rubinstein playing the piano, an absolute master of the keys, absolute mastery. And then I heard a question. Would he have been able to play like that if he wasn't given the gift to do so. Not in a million years. I was sent to piano lessons, and the teacher, got irritated with me. It was certainly not something I could do. But then the voice continued. And would he have been able to play like that if he did not practice? My word. And here, each one of us has a talent, and we've got a talent of discernment. This is a talent we all have, but it's one that needs to be practiced. And it is like you say, right, like Frankel said, choice is seldom between black and white. It's mostly between various good options. And now, which one to choose? I've learned to choose the one that is closest to my heart, that I intuitively feel drawn to. For example, especially when it comes to activities, and I can go to this activity, I can go to that workshop. I can, wait. Now, where do I? And I found myself in such places. I said, well, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? This is not for me. And to find the answer that's for you. And that answer, this is an absolute imperative, is always a justifiably, morally right thing. It's not a need, I want, it's on a higher level, it's on a spiritual level of choice. It's not on a need, animalistic level, okay? We are to grow out of our lower natures into who we are actually designed to be, thinking creatures that can discern right from wrong. And that discernment can become more and more refined, but I agree with you, practice makes perfect. And you know what will make you sure that you've made the right choice? And Frankel talks about it in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, where he was offered a chance to escape. And with, to save his life, to be able to go on with his work, to see his loved ones again. I mean, it's a very strong choice. But when he was attending to the patients with their meager medical facilities that they were given, and the one patient said, "Are you going?" And he felt restless. He said, "I can't do this. I have to stay, even for this one man. And okay, I may be killed. I may have lost a chance to escape." And he decided to stay. And immediately he felt, and this is it, you feel relief, Coral. You feel, yeah, I'm so glad. And especially in retrospect, because what did he discover in retrospect? That actually that chance to escape, they took those people that they said were going to go to some work camp or whatever, they took them to a place where they were all shot. He would have been killed anyway. So many examples of that I can give you of this with my interviews of Holocaust survivors. Just one where this darling old lady, she was old when I met her and interviewed her, but she said she was in Budapest as a childminder and of a Jewish family, and the Jewish family said to her, "Magda," and the Jews were called to come down the next morning because they were being rounded up. And this family said, a very wealthy family, "Magda, don't go down. We've paid the Nazis, guards that will do the rounds, big money, and they will pass our house." And she said all night she wrestled with that. But then she said, "No, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't. While the rest of my brothers and sisters are being rounded up, and I saved my own life. No. So she went down, and she was taken to Auschwitz. Okay, but she discovered that very family, those Jews that tried to hide, were tied together and thrown into the Danube alive, that they drowned. And she said, my life would have been in the Danube if I didn't make the right choice. Wow. And you know, that relief that comes to you when you do the right thing, and especially when you look back and say, oh my God, I'm so glad I made that choice. It's such a right choice. It's always the most moral, the most responsible choice. That is the yardstick. What is the best choice is always the very best for even in terms of you're doing what you are called to do, and not be sidetracked into doing a lot of other things and neglecting what you should actually be doing. Okay. Oh yeah, how the time is going to. There's still a few minutes left. Is there anybody else that want to say something? And you know what? I just want to encourage you all, please. Tonight was unusual because this is not what we actually want to do. We want you, because you're in the Optimal Living course, we like to help you along the way towards what we describe now as optimal living. And so the sharing of your stories, or addressing the issues that bother you or that you don't quite grasp, that's really what we want to do with these sessions. Not that you sit and listen to me, okay? So if you have thoughts about what you heard tonight, or things are not clear to you, please let us know about it. And we can follow that up then in a more interactive discussion than something like tonight doesn't allow, that we give you the time to come with your thoughts and we respond to that. Okay? All right. I think we can end here, Carol.
Okay.